Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jane Hewitt and I'm the Capability Building Coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. Connecting Up and TechSoup are part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges through the smart and creative use of technology. And for those of you who haven't attended a webinar session with us before, Connecting Up and TechSoup facilitate an annual training calendar of online webinars, workshops, boot camps and webcons to help the social sector upskill in all things digital. And you can check out on both the websites our digital learning programs for the rest of the year. So welcome today to How to Organise People and Data to Build a Thriving Community with Sorcha and Erika from Nation Builder. And just before we begin, we'll start with a bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type them into the questions, the chat box, and I'll get back to you during the webinar. And if you've got any questions, also type them in and we'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Please note that your comments and questions are only available to us and not the entire group. If you're on a Wi-Fi connection and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the sound and the video, so please try and close any programs that you're not using. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and the slides and the recording will be sent to you later on today. And before we start, I'd just like to remind you that we do have a survey at the end of the webinar, so we'd love it if you could just take a few moments to fill that out for us. That's all from me. I will now pass you over to Sorcha and Erika to get started.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am Erika. Are you able to see my screen still?
No, it just magically disappeared.
I just had it magically changed, didn't it? Oh, okay. Well, while I get that sorted, the first thing that I wanted to do is just do some introductions. So if I could get you to find that chat feature on your screen and maybe pop in there your first name, the city, what the weather's like today, it would be really great to see who's in the room.
Yeah.
Jane, are we able to see the people coming up in the chat?
All right, we are back in the...
There we go.
I don't see anyone in the chat, but that's okay. No worries. Let's see if we.
There we go.
All right, we've got some.
Yep. Take your time. I'm in Hobart, Tasmania, and it is a sunny morning. Actually, feels like spring. Who else is out there? We want to make sure that you've got Denise, Melbourne, it's raining. We want to make sure that you guys know where this chat feature is because we want to interact with you. And since we can't see you or hear you, this is the only way. Kathy from Brisbane, warm and sunny.
Lovely.
Who else is out there? There are quite a few people in here. So Kirsty.
Lovely. It's cold where I am, so I'm jealous of this warm and sunniness everywhere.
Yeah, so I think you all organize. So you all can't see this. So yeah, Kirsty, Wagga Wagga in rural New South Wales, works for small not-for-profit. Nice and sunny spring day here too. Crystal from Townsville, Australia, warm but windy.
Awesome.
Nice to see you guys coming in. Please keep popping in your first name. Keep popping in where you are so that we're reading it, and it's really nice to be able to see you when we're chatting at a screen. Northern Beaches, Sydney, glorious day. Mount Isa, Queensland, warm and sunny. Oh, I'm jealous. Yeah. It's nice to be connected, even if just this way during this time. So what I might do now is just do a proper introduction. Keep putting stuff in there. I'm reading Heather, of who we are. So my name is Erika Celis. I live in Hobart, Tasmania. I'm an enterprise account manager for Nation Builder here in Australia. If you don't know what Nation Builder is, that probably doesn't mean much to you. So I want to tell you just a little bit about my background. Welcome, Jeff. I see more people dropping stuff in the chat. So I came to Australia to study science a long time ago, and I care deeply about community and technology and how these two things can work together to solve real-world problems. I did a bachelor's of science, like I said, and realized that what I actually wanted to do was to work with people and communicate the important work that was being done in the scientific community, but not always being communicated. So I got started in advocacy. And I worked for about 5 years for small not-for-profits in Tasmania that were working mainly on environmental issues. And I was a communications officer, an engagement officer, and helped build movements out of communities. So I learned a lot about community organizing during another experience, which was the Obama campaign, the presidential election of 2008. I was a very dedicated volunteer on that campaign and brought some of the skills from those organizing efforts over here to Australia and applied them to the campaigns and my work here. About 2 years ago, I joined the Nation Builder team, and now I get to use the software and help dozens of organizations and associations in Australia to organize and build their community. I'm also on the board of the Australian Conservation Foundation, so I understand deeply how not-for-profits work here, and also run a small not-for-profit myself with my friends, which is the Latin American Cultural Association of Tasmania, because I'm originally from Colombia. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you for popping more introductions in the chat. Now over to Sorcha.
Thank you, Erika. Yes, it's so fantastic to be with you all. My name is Sorcha, and I am beaming in from Boston, although as I'm sure you can tell from my accent, I'm actually originally from London. I moved to America back in 2012 to come out here and do my master's. The plan was to stay here for a year, and here I am 8 years later. I fell in love with American politics, and I worked on Warren's campaign and Obama's campaign and Hillary's campaign and kind of did the whole campaign schema for many years, and then jumped into consulting and started to work with digital organizations and making sure that both corporations, associations, nonprofits, and political campaigns actually knew how to organize digitally. One of the key factors for me is the intersection of tech and politics, and understanding how technology can actually impact the political landscape and what people are trying to do to organize. And I've been really excited. I've been at Nation Builder now for about 5 years. I've worn many different hats. And then my current role as our Director of Strategic Partnerships, I get to work with amazing organizations like Connecting Up and making sure that we are sharing our thought leadership and expertise with people where it's most relevant. So I'm really excited to dig in with y'all today.
Thank you, Sorcha. Thank you, everyone. Hi, Curtis. I see you've dropped something in the chat. Please keep dropping stuff in there. You know, we can see it. Want to hear from you. So there's just one more brief introduction to make, and that is to Nation Builder and what it actually is. This will help you give you some context on the content of this webinar, but this webinar has been designed specifically for anyone. So you don't need to be using the Nation Builder platform to learn something useful today. So Nation Builder is a community engagement platform that includes several tools that are required to organize community all in one place. The platform includes a website where supporters can take action, a client relationship manager where you can organize your people, mass emailing capabilities to communicate with people one-to-one or by the thousands, and we provide event ticketing and the ability to take donations and run memberships. Here are some of our customers. We power many of Australia and New Zealand's most high-stake movements, campaigns, and associations. As we build and evolve our platform, we're constantly studying the history and the science of community building and always trying to figure out what actually moves people to take an action or to do something. So there are several organizing best practices that we've baked right into the platform, but underlying all of this is the recognition that there has been a shift in the world. And that shift is that influence no longer only comes from authority, but it comes from trust. It comes from trust because influence comes from relationships, and there's no way to have a good relationship or have many good relationships without trust. So a lot about this webinar is going to be about trust and how you build it in order to organize people, which will help you build a thriving community. So I don't know about you all, but when a friend of mine tells me that I should do something or go somewhere, I'm much more likely to do that thing than if I see it in an ad, even if I've seen that ad 3 or 4 times. And I think that you'll probably agree that it's much more likely that we're going to trust that information. But why is that? It's because we know that person, we know our friend, we know our partner, we know that they have like the best interests for us, and so we trust them. And so this is why trust is key. And in order to do this at scale, we need to create this sort of trust at scale in order to build a thriving community. So now I'm going to jump into the very first lesson of this webinar, which is to save your relationships, right? So trust, we know, comes from feeling heard, safe, and valued. And I want to, just to give you a really concrete example of this, I want you to imagine yourself at this dinner party here on this picture. Imagine that you went to a dinner party that a friend invited you to, and you met someone that you had a really good conversation with. Now, a week later, you run into them at a store and you smile, you stop to say hello because you had a really good conversation with them at the table. This person, though, they look confused, and embarrassingly, they admit they don't remember where they know you from. You quickly remind them about the dinner party, and they still look puzzled. And then the interaction, of course, becomes awkward, and you quickly leave, not wanting them to feel any worse for forgetting who you were and the context in which you met. So this very same situation can happen digitally on a big scale with people that care about your cause. It's a situation that leaves that person feeling unheard and undervalued. To remedy this, you need to get organized and save your relationships, which means owning and storing data. So to dive a little bit more into how we do this at Nation Builder, Sorcha is going to tell us a little bit about this.
Thank you. So what we're talking about here is the concept of owning your own data. And it's really, really important to think about how you own your current relationships, right? When we are looking at building a community, we want to actually be able to own the relationship you have with one another, and in particular with people you're asking to make actions on your behalf, or donating to you, or becoming a volunteer, or recruiting, whatever those types of actions are. So this premise of owning your own data is actually a founding principle of Nation Builder. And so we have some product principles that guide all of the work that we do to develop our platform. And so owning your own data, for what it means for Nation Builder, is that our customers' data is and always will be their own. We don't share it, we don't monetize it, or otherwise exploit any data of our customers. The reason I like to point that out is because when we are now in a very fast pace, very quick speed of social media, data seems to be kind of left on the wayside, right? And we're not actually allowed to think about it in a way of owning it by yourself, because the monetization and algorithms are part of social media's excitement and great for spreading messages, actually doesn't allow you to own the relationships. So when you're thinking about, if you're a smaller organization where you're looking to potentially, look at a CRM, it's really, really important to think about this premise of, do I own that relationship? Can I take that data out of that platform at any time and walk away with it? The other piece here that you're seeing on the screen is this ability to understand relationships within a CRM. And so we'll talk more about this in a later session, but it's important to point out the ability to be able to know that Francis Carr actually has a relationship with Roger Matthews in this particular example. And by owning that relationship and actually owning the data of Francis and Roger, you're able to manage that relationship and potentially reflect back to them how they've engaged with your organization, as opposed to just being able to, on social media platforms, amplify a message. And so really just wanted to kind of drill home this concept of owning your own data and what that value brings.
Thank you, Sorcha. Now we're going to go into some practical tips on how to do this, some advice on how to actually own your own data, how to actually save your relationships. So what kind of information should we be saving in the first place? So over here on the left, you can see name, address, phone number, maybe dietary preference. That's really good if you run events with food. Then below that, there's contextual data, which includes things like tags, email correspondence, maybe phone call logs, and information about how that person has been interacting with your organization. And so next, I want to bring up an example of how you could do this without a CRM. And there is a really simple way of organizing this kind of information using a spreadsheet. It could be Excel, it could be Google Docs, it could be whatever you have. The spreadsheet allows you to save a person as a row of information, and this data, which is on your screen, is a data point saved in a column. So just want to point out here that I don't advise doing this in something like a Word document, because it's then very, very difficult to filter and reorganize the data. So a spreadsheet as your most basic starter tool to organizing your, saving your relationships and owning your own data. So now let's look at a very specific example of saving a person in a spreadsheet. And the person that we're going to be using as an example is Frodo Baggins from The Lord of the Rings. We're going to pretend that he is one of our supporters, and we're using a spreadsheet to save his information. Here it is here. You can see that Frodo appears as a complete row. We have his contact details, phone number, address, some notes that Bilbo is his friend. And then we have the last 4 columns, which let us know how he's interacted with our organization. So we can see that he was an attendee of the fundraiser, that he's a member, that he is didn't go to the dance party, and that he didn't go to the webinar. So this is a simple row of information, but it allows us to understand and engage with Frodo, and we can actually email him, we can send him a letter in the mail, we can call him up on the phone. This is what we mean by owning your data. You can have a one-to-one communication with Frodo because you have this information in one place. So let's level up the next level of organizing this information in a spreadsheet and have a look at this spreadsheet. So in this spreadsheet, the first few columns, really, they're the same. It's the last 4 columns that have changed. Now the last 4 columns have become 1, and instead of listing out the event with a yes or a no, there are simply 4 bits of information that are separated by a column. They're not a sentence, but they're not a word. They're called a tag. Okay, and so tags are virtual sticky notes which tell us something about a person without having to write a sentence or a phrase. It's shorthand, really, and you get to be the one that decides what it says. So the most important thing is that you are able to read and understand what it means. So we're going to run through these that I have designed myself, so that now you will be able to read and understand what these tags mean and what tags, how they might be helpful. So the first tag is called event-attendees-fundraiser 2018. That tag is letting me know that Frodo was the attendee of the 2018 fundraiser. The next tag says RSVP Dance Party 2016. And this tag lets me know that Frodo RSVP'd for the dance party in 2016, but because it doesn't say attendee, I know that he actually didn't make it, right? The next tag is event-RSVP webinar 2020, and it's the same story. I know Frodo RSVP'd for this event, webinar 2020, but he never actually made it. And the final tag is member-2020, which lets me know that he is a financial member of our organization in 2020. So those tags that I've just described capture a little bit more information than the 4 columns above. Can you see how that difference? Because they let us know the year that an event was happening and whether he RSVP'd to an event or he actually attended the event. So this way of saving information gives me a better picture about Frodo, and I'm able to communicate with him given that context. It's all saved in a spreadsheet where I would be able to filter by, find and replace, do all the things that you can do in a spreadsheet. This is really good up to a certain number of contacts, and then it might become overwhelming, but that's up to you. This is kind of like the beginner way of saving your data. I want to just go back now because this concept of tags can be quite confusing and not very clear the first time you hear about it. And I want to go back to that image of the dinner party in your mind. So imagine the dinner party example. When the person that we met at the dinner party was at the supermarket, we, as the person that knows we've seen them before somewhere, we might have an image come to our mind of that dinner party. And we might actually have an image of the mutual friend that introduced us come to our mind. And then we might have an image from the conversation that we had with that person come to our mind. All those 3 things happen very quickly as soon as we see their face. So those 3 pieces of information help us go, oh, I know how I know this person. I think I'll just stop and say hello with the appropriate, and we communicate with them appropriately because we have those bits of information. So that's how we use tags in our minds, in our daily life. And these sorts of tags are the same thing, but they just let us do it digitally on devices. The last thing I'll say about tags, and then we're going to open up to some questions, is that here we can see an actual profile of Frodo, where we've now replaced, we've brought to life Frodo's profile from the spreadsheets to a built-out profile where we can see his contact information and these tags that we just went through on his profile. This allows us to really have a 360-point view of Frodo, and this is an actual nation builder profile, just showing you that live example. So tags can be manually added to a person like we did in the spreadsheet. If you're using your CRM, you can also manually add these to a profile, but depending on which you're using, tags can also be added automatically, which is where the magic really starts to happen. So when someone interacts with the page on your website, they might automatically be tagged. And then later on, you have the context that they RSVP'd on a page, and you're able to communicate with them appropriately. So what we're going to do now, before I click into the next slide, is we're going to have Jane put a poll up. And the poll is going to ask you to think about everything that you've heard about tags. Do you see how using tags could benefit your community organizing efforts right now? So go ahead and participate in that one.
Wow, those are some amazing results. 96% of people saying yes, and 4% saying not sure. So we'd love to hear from y'all. Pop it in the chat, pop it in the questions. And Erika, we seem to have lost the deck.
Yeah, I see. Follow up to that poll question. Is there anyone that is comfortable singing out if they are still unclear on what tags are? Because it's a new concept. Let me try and find this screen. If you have a question about that, please put it in the chat.
Yeah, the 4% of folks who are not sure would absolutely love to hear from y'all regarding tags. If a person didn't RSVP or doesn't attend to the fundraiser, would you still put a tag for consistency? So we know Frodo was contacted but didn't attend, RSVP, or not input at all. That really is an organization decision. And I think that's a really great question to think about how you would want to structure your tags. And so even though they didn't actually Frodo didn't actually come, it's actually helpful to know that you invited them, right? That could be a really helpful tactic when you're going back through looking at communications. Are you saying we should just use Nation Builder instead of a spreadsheet? Jeff, that's up to you. So we are saying, yeah, Erica, go for it.
Are you saying we need to start with a spreadsheet? So I'm saying this with my organizer hat on, not my Nation Builder employee hat on. When you get up to about 200 people in a spreadsheet, it can become overwhelming in a spreadsheet. So if you've got 200 people or less, you're probably all right to do it with a spreadsheet. If you have more than that, it is probably going to be interesting to see how much more effective you can be with a CRM.
Okay, so why don't we jump back in and we will get into more of these questions because there's some great ones coming in shortly.
So we'll save those questions now. I'll answer that one last question. I'm the only person in charge of this sort of thing. How time intensive is this sort of system? Michaela, at the end of this presentation, we'll be able to address that. And actually, you can even go in and have a play and kind of decide for yourself because everyone's skill set is different.
Awesome.
Okay. So moving on from here, these are just some questions that we just want you to reflect on. So zooming out away from specifically tags and spreadsheets, reflect on how you're currently saving and storing data. How could you improve this? And maybe what do you need to do first to improve this? You can pop answers in the chat. You can just write this down, like what's coming to your mind so that you have it as a reference when you start to do this work.
Yeah. I think thinking about how you want to store data as well is a great thing in that reflection.
All right, well, I might continue for the sake of time. So the next lesson is, we've just discussed ways in which you can save information about your supporters in order to build their trust, but how do you get that information in the first place, right? Well, the answer is you have to ask for this information. But just like any other kind of relationship, it is best to give before getting and asking. So what you need to actually create are opportunities for Frodo to be involved with your organization. So here are some opportunities. This creates an exchange, which it gives you the pieces of a good relationship because it's a two-way street. So you are able to give Frodo the opportunity to sign a petition or become a member, maybe come to an event, tell his story, any one of these. This is not an exhaustive list either. There might be other things that you can do, but you're in exchange for giving him an opportunity, you're able to ask him for some information. And so again, this comes back to trust and how you're able to see what he cares about, maybe what he did before, like signing a petition or going to an event, and then communicate with him based on that knowledge that you have about him. So relating really closely to this, we're going to talk about social media and how it fits into building this thriving community. Because sometimes our relationships are actually confined only to our social media platforms. And of course, this isn't ideal because we're not able to reach people one-to-one like we are with our spreadsheet or with our CRM, right? But does this mean that we shouldn't use social media? Of course not. Instead, we need to use it in collaboration with our data saving tools. So to do this effectively, what we actually need is a call to action. And a call to action is an explicit ask for someone to come and sign up or to register for an event or something like that. And usually you're taken out of social media and going to a website to do this, or you're staying in social media and that information is being passed on to the person that created that ad. but I want to give you some really solid examples of not-for-profit organizations doing this, because all too many times I see on social media posts and posts with no call to action. So there's no way that you can get your supporters from social media into a place where you actually own that data and you can save the relationship. So we're going to start off here with Twitter to show you a couple examples of good posts with clear calls to action. So you can see in the blue that there is a link where people can actually sign up to something. Over here, again, every girl deserves an education. Agree? Question mark. Join our hashtag 1 Second March and win VIP tickets. And then the link where you can sign up. There is no hashtag Shark Week without sharks. Let's stop the fin trade, and a link to do something. So that's Twitter. Let's have a look at Facebook. So this is the Aboriginal Legal Service, and you can find out more at the link that they provide there. The Bob Brown Foundation, you can register here, very clear link. Australian Youth for Climate Coalition, sign up at, and they have a very clear link. These are all calls to action. So now let's finally have a look at Instagram, where things are a little bit different, but still you can get your call to action in. In Instagram, you're not able to add a direct link to the post with an image. So what Doctors Without Borders has done here is they've said that there's a link in their bio. Same for Pencils of Promise, link in the bio. Charity for Water, there's a link there too. So I want you to think about what you're seeing now. I'm going to have Jane put up another poll, this time asking, are you currently giving people a way to engage with you on social media? And I think I might need to clarify that. Are you using active calls to action in your social media posts? Let's see what you all are saying. I'm not seeing anything happen. Oh, there it is. Cool.
Oh, okay. 78% yes and 22% no.
Oh, thank you for participating, y'all. I hope that those examples then were really solid and you can take them away with you for the 22% that know, and just start doing it. You're going to get this deck in a PDF format, so go through, have a look, even Google how to do effective calls to action. All right, so next we want to reflect a little bit again on what's coming up for people. How do you use social media to reach your supporters? How can you improve what you're doing? Is there anything missing? Please take this moment if you have any burning questions about social media and actually getting people from there so that you can start a relationship, to drop a question in the chat.
Yeah, I think really thinking about here of the use of things like hashtags, thunderclaps are another really exciting way to get that amplification. And when I say thunderclap, it's a tool that you can, a software that you can actually use for free, where you can put in a message and everyone signs up to have that same message go out from all of their accounts on the one day at the one time. It's a really great way to create a amplification of what's happening in the world. So just some great ways to think about how you can actually engage your community using social media, but actually driving them to take those calls to action.
All right. We will keep moving. So now that we've learned about saving relationships and the fact that we need to actually add a call to action in social media so that folks can sign up, we want to dive in and talk a little bit about where do you actually send them to sign up. So of course, this normally means a website, and what we're going to do now is have Sorcha share a very specific example of a sign up website using Nation Builder, but hold on, I might just hold that for a second, Sorcha, because I see a question.
Yeah.
Oh, that's strange.
No worries. I think it's just because it came to the screen share.
Oh, no problem. So this person is asking, I struggle to get people to interact a lot on Facebook. I get a lot of likes, but not so many comments that I can respond to, even when I've specifically asked for a response. So this is not our area of expertise, but definitely there's some general wisdom that we can share with you about the way that social media decides who they do show a post to or don't show a post to. So there's different kinds of reach in social media platforms. And sometimes your message, your question may not be shown to your entire audience, which is our main point in this webinar, is that you should own your relationships. And that's why it is tricky to mainly be using social media, because it is an algorithm that decides how many people see the post that you just posted. All too many times, it doesn't mean that they don't like it or they don't care, they just didn't see it. So once again, owning your relationship and being able to communicate with that person in an email or by phone number or on their phone or another way is the way that you can get around that.
Yeah, the only other thing I'll add to that is people have a different choice in which mediums they want to respond to. And depending on what your organization is doing, they may not want to publicly engage with that. And so again, to the point of owning your relationships, email, texting, phone calling are private methods of where people can actually identify if you are trying to build a relationship, as opposed to the social media platforms, which are like designed and are very good at amplification, as opposed to kind of building that relationship. Awesome. We are posting but don't have huge engagement. How do we grow our audience? Okay, well, we can talk about how do we grow our audience. Acquisition tactics, absolutely. But I'm gonna go through the front-facing website to try and think about acquisition tactics, right? Because petitions are a part of an acquisition tactics in terms of how do I get net new people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump in right here. So what you're seeing is a front-facing website. So it's a website that anyone can go to. And in Nation Builder's platform, you have the ability to be able to create multiple websites. This particular website is a website that we created, Nation Builder's team created, to help the helpers during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so I'm just going to walk you through signing a petition. And to your question, when you're thinking about how do you acquire new supporters, lowering the barrier to entry for how they can engage with you is really key in getting them in the door. And a petition is a really great way for you to actually think about how do I lower that barrier to entry. So if I jump over here and I hit sign the petition, the first thing that you are seeing on the right hand side is that we've got 15 signatures so far to help us get to 1,000. Fun fact, a lot of human beings are like sheep. They follow. Right? It's just true. If any of you have ever hosted an event or done a sign-in sheet, remember on a sign-in sheet where it says first name, last name, email, if the first person doesn't fill in all 3 boxes, the next 10 won't either. It's very sad but real. But what I'm saying with that is right here I'm getting this like list of who else has gotten involved with this. Let's think back to what Erika talked about with that dinner table and the dinner party, right? Are your friends involved? Maybe you actually will do this because your friends are engaging. So now if we come down here, we're going to continue on with our Frodo Baggins show. I really hope there are some folks out here that like Lord of the Rings as much as Erika and I do. If not, we're falling on deaf ears, but that's okay because we like it. And I'm just going to put in some dummy information. Great, and we are going to be on 1 Main Street, Sydney. And then I'm just going to pick here, Australia. Awesome. So what you're also seeing here is the ability to consent, to actually opt in to receive different types of communications from this organization. You can also share a comment, any type of language you as the individual want to interact. And last but not least, also share that you'd like to volunteer. So now I'm going to go ahead and add that signature. And the first thing you're going to see is the prompt to share. The real value of this, again, I'm going to come back to that how do you grow our audience question. Friends and family. People are more likely to engage when if I share this now on my Facebook or my WhatsApp or my Twitter, Erika would see that Sorcha shared it. That could prompt a conversation between us. Sorcha, why do you care about Help the Helpers? How can I get involved? The other thing that this tool allows you to do is have a unique URL for each person. So when I share this out to my Facebook or my WhatsApp, I would actually get credit for the fact that I brought Erika into the organization. There's a whole host of things that we can talk about in tactics and strategies of how do I gamify this? How do I make it exciting for people? And that's also a way to think about for building your audience is how do you make it exciting? The last thing I want to show you on this front-facing side is the next step in the journey, right? So the first step in the journey was that petition. But what's the next step? What's the next thing you'd like that person to do to start to build that relationship and build trust with them? So here we're having the option to actually volunteer. What you're going to notice is that my name is logged because they know who I am, right? I'm Frodo. I just took that action. And now I can just go in. It's a lower barrier to entry for me where I can just pick what I'd like to do and how I'd like to participate. So now I'm actually going to go into what we call the control panel, which is the back end of Nation Builder, and see what it looks like with an integrated platform for how Frodo's taken an action and now how he is in your data, in your community. So if we jump over here, what you're going to see is we land on the dashboard, right? So the dashboard gives you this overview of the goals that you as an organization have. You can see right now we are really not doing too great. We've got 2 of 100. We need to figure that out. But where I'm going to jump into is this activity stream. So this activity stream is going to give you a full overview of everything that's taking place in your nation. So what we're seeing here is Frodo Baggins. So I'm going to click on the Frodo Baggins link. And what that's going to do is it's going to take me into his individual profile, like what Erika had shown you earlier, that 360 view of an individual. What we see here are some basic information points that Frodo entered himself. So his name, the address, the phone number, the email, but we see these tags. None of you saw me do an import, right? These tags were appended to his profile based on the action that he took, which is becoming an online advocate and signing a petition as it pertains to COVID-19. So we're getting really specific there with that tagging convention to what Erika said earlier, right? You control what that language is. Last thing I want to show you within the platform is this activity box right here. This activity box allows you to interact with your individual supporters. And don't worry, we will talk about getting into this at scale if you have hundreds of thousands of people. That will be in the next session. But right now we're focusing on that one-to-one. So we can add an internal note right here if I want to let Erika know that Frodo actually really likes to be contacted via text message, for example. I can also send a one-to-one email to Frodo in this. I can log a contact, maybe we had a phone call or a video call. I can RSVP him for an event, and I can also do a live donation right there and then. The last thing I wanted to flag for y'all is on the left-hand side, the orientation of Nation Builder as an integrated platform. So what we saw today was the dashboard and the people section. We did actually see the website, but we saw the front-facing website. And in here, you have the ability to create different types of pages for acquisition, for events, etc. And then here is your communications and finances. So in your comms, you can send emails, and in your finances, obviously fundraise for your cause. And so I'm going to pass it back over to Erika now to kind of summarize all that we have gone through in today's session.
All right. So we're nearing the end, and we want to just go through and recap what we have learned today. So the first thing that we learned is that influence no longer comes from authority, it comes from trust. Sorcha, if you could just click, yeah, thank you. And in order to build trust, we need good relationships with our supporters. The next one is that good relationships require us to draw upon how we know someone, what is important to them, and to do this, we need to save their information in one place. Next one is that digital organizing is the practice of storing data about a person in order to organize a community. And we learned about tags and that they can be very handy in attributing some information to a person. The next one that we learned about was that relying on social media to save our relationships isn't enough. We need to get our followers to become supporters and actually explicitly sign up so that we can start a real relationship with them. In doing that, it's our responsibility as organizers to build deeper relationships with our supporters. And of course, having a place where they can sign up is key. So wherever we speak to them, we need to have them link them back to signing up. All right, we've reached now, with a good amount of time left over, the end of the actual content of this webinar. And so at this time, we want to hear all questions. Like, I saw that a few more were popping up in there. So all questions that you have about the content that you've seen here, or just questions that you might have for Sorcha and I as people who are very experienced in organizing communities digitally.
And Erika, I got one in the chat just to clarify the tags that came onto Frodo's profile. So it said, did you create those tags beforehand, or did Nation Builder generate them themselves? And so to clarify that, Nation Builder did not create those tags. Me as the organization, Help the Helpers, created those tags based on the content that I was putting on that page. So to say that another way, you as the organization have the ability to control what tags are appended to whom based on what action.
Yeah. So you create the tags 100%. They might look completely different than my tags.
Absolutely. So let's go through some questions. So I'm going to scroll back up here and just make sure we haven't missed any. So we talked about the engagement and how to grow your audience briefly. I'm not sure how to measure links from Facebook through to our website. Is that through Facebook or Google Analytics on the website?
That's, again, out of our expertise. I can give you a hint though. If you Google UTM links, and how to set those up in Google Analytics, you will be able to do that. And you'll be able to do that with whatever kind of website you have, whether it be Nation Builder or another one. But UTM links is the keyword that you should go and maybe look for.
Yeah, and the other one is pixel tracking. So being able to embed a Facebook or social media pixel into the page itself, where you can get very specific in what you're tracking for in analytics.
I see a question. Can you explain more about how tags automatically update when a person interacts with the website, please, Kirsty? Yeah, so in Nation Builder, I can't speak for any other CRM, but in Nation Builder, in the settings of a page, you add the tag that you want added to a person when they sign up. It's that simple.
Yep. Okay, next up, we send monthly MailChimp. Don't know if even open it. What could we do? Steve, if you could maybe rephrase that, unless Erika.
I'm going to assume that he's saying they send monthly email through MailChimp and he's not even sure if it's being opened. So Going back to building relationships, you want to know, and MailChimp definitely does provide statistics on opening rates. So if you're probably the industry standard not-for-profits is about 30%. If you're below 30%, you probably having less engagement with your emails than you'd like. But dig in to MailChimp, you are able to see the statistics of who's open and who hasn't. And Steve, if I didn't answer your question, please do clarify.
Definitely. Okay, so for my small business, I use Zoho CRM and other products. Why wouldn't I use Zoho for my not-for-profit? I do not have any experience with Zoho's platform, but I can tell you why you should use Nation Builder, if that's helpful to you. So look, everyone has a preference when it comes to platforms. I'll take my Nation Builder hat off to even tell you about this. Like when I was working in a consultant agency, I was looking for a software that would actually allow for everything to speak to itself. So what I mean by that is Frodo Baggins is in my nation. I know that he's taken an action on my website. I also know that he has opened 10 of my emails. I also know that he has pledged to donate $100, but he's only actually donated 20 of that. And I know how long I've had a relationship with him and who he has relationships with, all from putting people at the center. So to go back to what I said earlier around our product principles of owning your own data, another core principle of ours is putting people at the center. And what stems from that is trust and actually building relationships. Again, I can't speak to Zoho or Salesforce specifically. I see there's another question about Zoho and Salesforce underneath that. But I hope that's helpful to answer that question.
Next question, can Nation Builder be used as a basic CRM? If not, can you recommend a CRM appropriate for an NGO? Of course, Nation Builder can definitely be used as a basic CRM. You don't need to use like the website component or any others. It could just be a database. So yes, to that question. Next question, if you only gather a person's Facebook ID on Nation Builder and they do not respond enough to get their details, how can you engage with them? Jeff? So Sorcha, you want to take that one?
Sure. Jeff, it sounds like you may have used our platform historically. And so just to make very clear for anyone who has used our platform historically, Nation Builder used to have a feature called Nation Builder Match. That feature no longer exists. And so this concept of being able to kind of pull in social media profiles is not something that we do with an email address. You can, however, still connect your Facebook page to Nation Builder, where you will be able to get people's Facebook ID profiles within Nation Builder. When you speak to, if they do not respond enough to get other details, how can you engage them? There's a number of different tactics with that. You can do retargeting on social media platforms, specifically so that those individuals are able to receive your content. I'd also recommend looking at A/B testing, different language and different imagery with individuals to see what can actually kind of spike an index as it pertains to that. But just to clarify kind of what was in Nation Builder and now what is.
Next question, does your organization need to have, hold on, oh, they keep moving. Does your organization website need to be hosted within the platform? Karen, the answer is no. You can have a website outside of Nation Builder and just use the Nation Builder website for action pages and link to those pages. So that's done very commonly because it is a big deal to redo an entire website. So sometimes organizations have their main one and then just an action website, and the two are linked together with redirect pages. This one is an interesting, how to manage a community that spans multiple generations and abilities, including intellectual disabilities, with a one-person operation. What is the absolute minimum but effective thing or things to do? So Denise, I think that adding rich information about people in their profile or on their row of an Excel spreadsheet are the most important things to do. In this example, in Nation Builder, you're given a plethora of fields for any particular person. There's also a background section on a person where you can write a background about a person that might be a unique case to them, so that anyone else working with that person can see what is very specific and unique to them. But tags can also be used to do this. So I know I worked for a very small not-for-profit that had an older generation of supporters, and I had a tag that was explicitly like a no digital comms, because these people did not use mobile phones yet, and they didn't want to. They had no interest on doing things online. And so we knew that with them, we actually had to send them a letter. We had to call them on their landline. So those tags were able to really put a sticky note on their profile, and those people could be treated as they needed to be treated.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying, to sum it up, is the fields and the tags and the combination of using them in a very thoughtful way can help you treat each person as they need to be treated, even if you are just a one-person operation, which I was a two-person operation in that position, but it did work.
The only other thing I'll add to that is set goals. It can be extremely daunting and overwhelming if you are just trying to do all of the things. Like, compartmentalize that and set goals for the different and the diverse, like it sounds like, the diverse groups that you want to be supporting. Okay, so question about the platform. You mentioned Nation Builder can receive donations. Does it then link accounts and also issue receipts? Yes. So Nation Builder receives donations through our payment processor, which is Nation Builder Payments, which uses Stripe as its kind of underhood. We do issue receipts, and then I'm not sure about the link accounts piece, Erika.
I wonder what they mean by link accounts.
If you're asking, Karen, can you link accounts that you, like your payment account? Yes, you absolutely can, because you would just add your bank account into the payment processor.
And the donations
clarify.
Yeah, the donations land into your bank account.
Yeah, please clarify that if we didn't get that right, Karen.
Can we save emails from Outlook into a person's profile? You can definitely copy and paste any kind of text from somewhere into a person's profile. Yes.
And you can also connect your
yes.
email tool, so
which is more efficient. Yeah, so you can connect your email tool to Nation Builder, so that when you send an email to someone from Outlook, it is copied in their profile in Nation Builder.
Awesome. I am
We're almost at time, Sorcha. There's a few more questions, but I wonder if we should go ahead and tell folks about the little gifts we've got for them today.
We absolutely should. So I actually think we answer a lot of these questions, because I see a lot of folks asking us about price, asking us about comparisons, things like that. So
as
yeah,
go ahead. I'm not sure that I see. Okay, no, go for it. Go for it. I do see the screen. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we like to give, right? We want to build a relationship with y'all. We're really excited about our partnership with Connecting Up. And so for everyone who is attending this webinar and any of the webinar series that we have coming up, the first thing we're going to give you is access to a sandbox. And what we mean by a sandbox, Nation, is you're going to get access to the Nation Builder platform, where you actually have dummy data in there. There are emails set up in there, so you can actually really get in and figure out, is this for me? Is this the thing I want to actually start to learn and start to engage with? So that's number one. Number two is any Connecting Up member is now going to have access to a extended free trial. So with Nation Builder's platform, you normally get a 14-day free trial. And what we are going to do for Connecting Up members is you will have an additional 30 days on top of that 14-day free trial. The other things we're going to give you are some more content. And the next one is coming up next week at the same time. And we will be digging into email, in particular, looking at how do you improve that open rate? So some of those questions earlier of, I'm not getting people to engage with my content, we're going to be really looking at that here as it pertains to what digital tactics can you use. And then last but not least is, how do you facilitate? How do you actually create meaningful engagements that are virtual using skills of facilitation, reflective listening? So I'm really excited to dive into all of that with y'all. Anything else, Erika, to add in the follow-up?
Not at this stage. Look out for that email. Of course, those who sign up for the Sandbox Nation or the free trial, we will then have your emails. And I am here in Australia. Sometimes I do a fortnightly Nation Builder Live where I do like kind of an informal training. I saw that someone was asking about training. And what else am I seeing in there? Had a great conversation. Do you have a client not-for-profit that I can follow, donate to see how the platform performs? Well, Fiona, any of the logos that you saw at the beginning, which will be in the deck that you receive in your email, you can go have a play around their websites. But yeah, we really look forward to seeing you guys at the next webinar, where we'll be following on from where we've stopped today, and hope to see you in that Sandbox Nation playing around with all of the features of Nation Builder that we touched on today.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you both very much for joining us today, and thank you everybody else. And just a few people are asking questions if they're going to receive recordings. Yep, I will be sending them out towards the end of the day, and I'll also include Sorcha and Erika's emails in there. But thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you both, that was brilliant. And if everybody could just take a couple of minutes to fill in the survey at the end, that'd be much appreciated. So cool, see you on the 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Bye.